notification. Okay. Where are we? Let's see. There we go. Okay, notification is sent out. Check to make sure we're online. We are live. Make sure we're online. Good. Okay. We are ready to roll. Let's see. Got that. And okay. Let's see. Okay. Get the guitar. Rip up into the Koe da se Rina Mecca Dina. Creep up into the Koe da se Rina Mecca Dina. Takala Sahane Mola di Koro Nishamane Sprayagina. Takala Sahane Nijamane Spriyaina. Uday Sakale Samana Korite Shakati Nata Yata Yata. Sakale Samana Korite Shakati Nata Yata Yata. Doga hibo Harinamasuke Apparata Hoileata. Tabikoga hibo Harinamasuke Apparata Hoileata. Kabeheno Kripa Lopi Jana Kritata Hoileata. Kamiheno kripa lopi ai jana kritada oivenata. Shakti buri hetyen nami vatintehen koromore atmasata. Shakti buri hetyen nami vatintehen koromore atmasata. Yogyata vichari kichunai poi domaracha karunaksara. Yogyata vichari kichunai poi domaracha karunaksara. Karanana hoile kandiya kandiya prananara kiwara. Karanana hoile Chaitanya Kandeya Pranadara Kivara Gurudev Ripabendu Dia Korove Dase Trina Bekati Ripabendu Dia Korove Dase Trina Bekati Sakalasahane Mondia Koro Nijamana Sprayana Sakalasahane Mondia Koro Nijamana Sprayana Prabhupada, 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 Jai Gaur, Haribo, Haribo, Jai Gaur, Haribo. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paramikacharya, also Teta Satashi Shimad, His Divine Grace by Charanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananda Koti Vaishnav Vrind Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Hridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrind Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopi Gopinath Saim Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Ki Jai, Mathuram Ki Jai, Jagannath Swami Ki Jai, Yamunamai Ki Jai, Shrimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrind Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharne Nivashesha Shunya Vadi Paschacha Dejatarani. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we are continuing with our study of the Ramananda Samvada, which is based on the discussion between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roy on the banks of the Godavari River in Rajamundry. And during this discussion, Ramananda Roy is being asked by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu about what is the highest goal and what is the best way to reach that highest goal, or the highest way to reach the highest goal. And Ramananda Roy starts out with talking about Varnashram, and Lord Chaitanya says that's external, and then Ramananda Roy says, well, just basically give up Varnashram, take sannyas. And Lord Chaitanya says that's external. And then Ramananda Roy starts talking about Yat Kuroshi Yad Jahoshi Yad Jadasi Yad Kuroshi Yad Jadashi Yad Jahoshi Jadasi Yat Apashashi Kantya Tad Karushwa Mararpanam. One should offer everything and do everything as a service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Lord Chaitanya said that's also external. And then we have pure devotional service being presented, I guess on the principle of neutrality. Then after that, there's servitorship that's presented, Dasha Rati. And now we're going to start reading about Sakya Rati. So Sakya means friendship with Krishna. So that's where we are in this wonderful book, based upon, it's actually written by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada before he came to the Western world, like in 1960 or something like that, or 59 or 60, he wrote this. And it was never published up until recently. It's called the Ramananda Samvada. Okay, so let's go ahead and read from it. So, Om Gana Timirandasha Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shigave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we'll share the screen. And let's find that. Where is it? It's there somewhere. Huh. I know it's there on one of the screens. Hold on a second. Right. Yeah, I have to open it up. Oh, I see what happened. Zoom interfered with it. Okay, now we're going to be able to do it. There we go. Okay, and we just size all the windows here so nothing interferes with anything else. Good. Okay. Sakya Prema. Sakya means, of course, friendship. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was satisfied by Ramananda's explanation of transcendental servitude to the personality of Godhead. That's called Dasha Rati. And he asked Ramananda to go still further. Ramananda then explained spontaneous loving service rendered by a friend of the personality of Godhead. This is called Sakya Prem, or the transcendental ras of friendship with the personality of Godhead. Now, the word ras means the taste of a relationship. It doesn't mean relationship, and oftentimes the devotees use the word ras to indicate the relationship, but it's the taste of a relationship. Rati is the actual relationship. So, Rai kahi sakya prema sarva saja sara. Sarva. That means all sajas, the goal. It means Ramananda Roy said that Sakya Prema, friendship relationship with the Lord, is the goal. Sakya Prema is superior to Dasha Prema. Dasha Prema, of course, is the servitude relationship in the following respect. Although in Dasha Prema there is a transcendental relationship with God as master and servant, it includes the sense that God is my maker. That sounds very biblical to me, doesn't it? And actually master. God is my maker and master. Thus in Dasha Prem, there's an awareness of the greatness of the personality of Godhead. And as such, Dasha Prem is mixed with a sense of fear and reverence for him. So in other words, God is the maker, the creator, all these different things. He's the boss, the big boss. So there's no intimacy there in Dasha. But in Sakya Prema, actually, Prabhupada says, the sense of fear and reverence is completely absent. On the contrary, a sense of equality prevails in the Sakya Prema. This sense of equality is an advance over the Dasha Prema. Here's a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th Canto, 12th chapter, text 11, on the subject of Sakya Prema. Itam satam brahma sukhanubhutya dashyam gatanam paradaivatena ayashutanam naranadarakena sardam vijahru punya punja. The personality of Godhead who is experienced by the empiric philosophers. Empiric philosophers means philosophers who speculate with their minds and use what they can perceive as sort of the axioms from which they derive their conclusions. Axioms. What does an axiom mean? For those of you who don't know, it's a self-evident truth. That's right. Like one axiom may be that, I think, therefore I am. Cogito ergo sum. Because it's basically an axiom. I'm thinking and therefore I am. Or this material world is real. You got to accept certain basic axioms based upon your perceptions. As an impersonal feeling of transcendental bliss, so he's experienced by these particular philosophers as an impersonal feeling of transcendental bliss, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead to the devotees, related with him as master and servant, and who is an ordinary human child to the people under the illusion of the external energy, was playing in the rus of friendship with the coward boys of Braj, who obtained that stage of life after many, many virtuous acts accumulated in many, many lives. So that's higher than simply servitude. And it's a very intimate relationship. I mean, they wrestle with Krishna. They have competition with Krishna. Like Arjuna, for example, in the Bhagavad Gita, he lies down on the bed with Krishna and chastises Krishna sometimes. You don't do that in Dasharas, but you can do that in the Sakyaras. Now we're going to go higher, quickly going to higher and higher points. Lord Chaitanya approved of this advance and asked Ramananda to go still further in the development of transcendental relationships. Sakya Prema is an advance in transcendental mellows over Dasha Prema, but Vatsalya Prema, parental affection, is still more advanced than Sakya Prema. In other words, it's more intimate to be Krishna's mother or father or have the mood like that you're protecting Krishna than it is just simply to be Krishna's buddy, because it's a feeling of superiority. I'm not that I'm better than God, but God is dependent on me. So Ramananda Roy thus described a stanza from Srimad Bhagavatam describing the excellence of Vatsalya Prem. That's like Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj. So, Nanda Kim Akarod Brahman Shreya Evam Mahodayam Yashoda Va Mahabhaga Papa Yashastanam Harihi. O Brahmana, it is puzzling to try to understand what virtuous acts Nanda Maharaj performed that he could have Hari, Sri Krishna, as his son. It is also puzzling to try to understand about Yashoda Devi, who was addressed by the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, as mother, and whose breast he sucked in filial affection. Here's another quote from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 9th chapter, text 20. Ne mambarincho na bhavo na shrir apyanga samshaya prasadam libire gopi yatat prapa vimuktitat. Thus the blessing of the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, which was gained by the coward lady Yashoda Devi, was never expected by the demigods like Brahma or Shiva, or even by Lakshmi Devi, who was the constant consort of the personality of Godhead, Narayana. This means that Srimati Yashoda Devi and Nanda Maharaj worship the personality of Godhead with the conception of the sonhood of Godhead. In Christianity, the fatherhood of Godhead is accepted, like our Father who art in heaven. And in Hinduism, there is the worship of Shakti, the external energy of Godhead, the motherhood of Godhead. So Shakti would be the worship of Durga. But these are shadows, but Prabhupada says both of these are shadows of Vatsalya Prem, or are material or a product of the external energy. They are a sort of perverted representation of the real Vatsalya Prem, because by such a material conception of fatherhood, of motherhood, of Godhead, the worshipper's aim is to extract service from the Almighty. That's interesting. How is it interesting? We accept that God exists, and we pray to him as the Father who art in heaven. Hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. On earth as it is in heaven, give us this day our daily bread. Or give us this day our daily ghee, if you happen to be from India. The spirit of enjoyment and the spirit of renunciation are the predominant factors of material existence. This is a really interesting statement. The one wants to enjoy or give up the enjoyment. Why is that also material? Because it's about you or me. Because it's what gives me more satisfaction. That's the difference between matter and spirit. Spirit is what gives Krishna satisfaction. Matter is what gives you satisfaction, or me, or any fallen conditioned soul. The enjoying spirit is cultivated by the karmis, people engaged in fruitive activities, and the spirit of renunciation is cultivated by the jnanis, empiric philosophers. Again, empiric means material philosophers. Okay. So we've heard this many times before, who become baffled by their engagement in fruitive activities. Both the karmis and jnanis are therefore materialists because both of them maintain the spirit of being served by the absolute truth. Here's the key. Service by the absolute truth. To satisfy themselves, their own conceptions, both of them demand something from the absolute truth. Either you demand something, let's say, physical, or you demand to be liberated from the, let's say, the threefold miseries of this world. The absolute truth is meant to be served by all living entities. He is not meant to serve the living entities. The living entities are mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita as the parts and parcels of the absolute truth. The parts and parcels are meant to render service to the whole. It is absurd for the parts and parcels, that's us, we're part and parcel of Krishna, to think of becoming one with the whole or to extract service from the whole. That's obvious. The part of parcel living entity, us, when unfit to render service, is detached from the whole. Unfit means we decide not to. It's not that we were forced to be unfit. We chose to be unfit. Therefore, the spirit of demanding service from the absolute whole is a symptom of being detached from the absolute whole. In other words, if we want something from God, then that's not religion or bhakti. Of course, it may be a preliminary stage, but it's material. Or in other words, of being the domain of the external energy of Godhead. In other words, as long as you want something, you are in Maya, Prabhu. Such a demanding policy of the materialists, though through a conception of the fatherhood or motherhood of Godhead, is a slight attempt to revive their eternal relationship with God. However, these conceptions are far from the conception of the sonhood of Godhead as shown by Nanda and Yashoda. So God becomes the son, or dependent on the devotee, and the devotee is serving God, not that God serves you. What you would say is, ask not what God can do for you, but ask what you can do for God. Or Krishna is even better. The conception of sonhood of Godhead is a cent%, hold on a second, spiritually pure transcendental rasa. In other words, if you consider you're serving Krishna as your son, or in the mood of parental affection, that's completely pure. But when you ask God to serve you, that is not pure. Whether you serve him, you want him to serve you materially or spiritually in terms of liberation. That's the difference, the delineation between matter and spirit. There was no demand made by Nanda and Yashoda on the personality of Godhead. They offered pure and simple service to the personality of Godhead by nursing him as a baby, and as a young man too, under the influence of Yoga Maya. That's the internal energy of Godhead. They thought of Sri Krishna as nothing more or less than their affectionate and dependent son. The service of parents for a dependent son is always spontaneous and unalloyed. Like Prabhupada actually said, even in this world, a mother's love for her child, whether son or daughter, is the closest thing to pure love that we find. Everything else is far away. I mean, like the love between in the conjugal rasa in this world is further away from pure love, because that, what is that? That is based upon lust, more upon enjoying the senses. And the reason for that is that all these relationships we have in this world are reflections, or as I sometimes say, perverted reflections of the relationships in the spiritual realm. Any relationship in the spiritual realm is conjugal, in the material realm is conjugal. So when you have a reflection, what's highest there is lowest here. Upside down. 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Check it out. A banyan tree that is upside down with its branches down and its roots up. That's a reflection. Lord Chaitanya admitted the superiority of Vatsalya Prem over Sakya Prem, but he asked Ramananda Roy to go still further in the realm of transcendental mellowness. Now, mellowness doesn't mean calm or something like that. It means basically the taste of a relationship. That's what a mellow is. Now, sometimes in English, the word mellow could mean someone's really calm. He's a really mellow guy. But that's what mellow means right now. Lord Chaitanya said, Prabhu kahi, eho uttama age kaha ara, rai kahi, kanta prema sarva saja sara. That means conjugal love is the topmost goal. As far as you certainly explained the gradual development of transcendental eternal relationships with the personality of God very well, but of them this conception of Vatsalya Prem, there's the supreme transcendental ras, which is the topmost transcendental service. Upon hearing the suggestion of Lord Chaitanya, Ramananda declared that a transcendental conjugal relationship with Godhead is the highest form of loving service rendered to the personality of Godhead. The process of developing a transcendental relationship with Godhead is understood gradually by simply accepting the glories of the personality of Godhead and establishing service to Him in the transcendental ras of calmness. That's Shanta, that's the first one, where you just like worship God is great and you're overawed with just seeing Him. The sentiment of love, whoops, I'm actually going the wrong direction. Sorry about that. We got to go to the next page. The sentiment of love for Godhead as one's personal master is not developed. Shanta, that's peaceful, neutral. Prem is a stage of peaceful appreciation of the glories of the personality of God. You know, God is great, He's wonderful, He's powerful, He's strong, He's beautiful, He's a really intelligent guy. That's Shanta. And then you have Indasha Prem, or transcendental servitude to Godhead. A sense of intimacy with Godhead is not developed. In both Sakya Prem, transcendental friendship with God, and Vatsalya Prem, parental affection, the sense of unrestricted approach for loving service is not developed. In other words, there are some barriers. As such, the complete perfection of transcendental relationships is not found. The fullness of service, unchecked by all conventional restrictions, is only developed in Madhurya Prema, that is transcendental loving service and conjugal love. Thus, in the order of Lord Chaitanya, Ramananda began to explain the nature of Madhurya Prema. Ramananda quoted a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam wherein Uddhava spoke of the fortune of Krishna's coward girlfriends who melted away in ecstasy when they heard Uddhava describe the activities of Sri Krishna. Uddhava said, now this is when Uddhava visited Vrindavan, and he appreciated the love of the gopis because he saw that manifested. So he was carrying a message from Krishna. And especially Radharani responded to that message in quite a striking, emotionally, let's say, upset way, which is called the Song of the Bumblebee. Nayam Shriyanga Unitanta Rate Prasada Svarayoshitam Nalina Ganda Rucham Kutonya Rasotsavesha bhujadanda grihita kanta labdashishamya udugad rajasundarinam. The transcendental happiness that was bestowed upon the beautiful damsels of Braja, who got the opportunity to be embraced by the strong hands of Sri Krishna on the occasion of performing the Rasa Leela, was never experienced even by Lakshmi, who resides on the chest of the personality of Godhead Narayana. Neither was such pleasure ever felt by the angels of heaven, whose bodies emanate the smell of lotus flowers. What to speak, then, of ordinary beauties? Bhagavatam 10:47-60. Quoting another passage from the Srimad Bhagavatam 10:82-2, Ramananda said, Tasam avirabhutshari mayamhana mukhambuja pitambaratara shagvi sakshan manmata. Shri Krishna, who is the enchanter of Cupid, dressed in yellow, wore a garland of flowers, and all of a sudden appeared in his eternal smiling form in the midst of the coward girls who were mourning in separation from him after the pastime of the Rasa Leela. Thus Ramananda Roy summarized all the different transcendental relationships with Godhead. He said that all of these are means of gaining the favor of Sri Krishna. A devotee in a particular relationship with Godhead will consider that relationship the highest of all. But when all the transcendental relationships are scrutinized and compared from a neutral angle of vision, the difference in intensity can be estimated. In other words, everybody has their eternal relationship. And for you, that's the best. Okay? That's your own subjective, spiritual subjective stuff. But it's subjective. But from an objective point of view, if you just look to see which is the most intimate, close relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then it's obvious that the conjugal relationship has no bounds. And the other relationships are, they have some bounds to them. Okay. So let's go upstarts. It's interesting. Presently a class of asuras, ungodly people who are demoniac in nature, have ventured to become preachers of spiritual realization by propagating a novel theory that the absolute truth is a matter of personal realization, and the particular type of realization one has does not matter. This idea is sprung up from the demoniac thinking that directly denies any particular cause of the creation. A description of such asuras is given in the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The 16th chapter is called The Divine and Demoniac Natures. The asuras do not believe in the existence of the personality Godhead under whose direction the creation takes place. According to the asuras, everything in this world is a matter of chance, and there's no truth in the belief that God has created the universe. So this, of course, is commonly understood as, I guess, the chance theory, but also evolution fits under this, that by chance and selection, what they call natural selection, survival of the fittest, then the living entities evolve from one species to another, although they have not found evidence of one species becoming another. They can see differences in one species occurring because of environmental factors or whatever factors, or factors because of other animals, but they cannot see the transformation of one species to another. In other words, no missing links. In other words, that's what the word is. The different philosophical theories about the creation put forward by atheists are speculative gymnastic feats. Not gymnastic in the sense that they're just like jumping rope or something, because they say that determining the absolute truth is a matter of personal realization. The so-called favor of Godhead can be achieved by any means that may be conceived by a simple speculator. This is kind of stupid. They say that there are many ways of realizing God or the absolute truth, as there are speculators in the world. It's like this. Like whatever ticket you buy in the airport, you can arrive at the same destination. Same thing. Ramananda Roy is certainly not one of these speculators, and his mention of various means of gaining the favor of Godhead does not suggest that the transcendental favor of Godhead can be achieved by any speculative method, or of the empiric philosopher or the upstarts of spiritual fervor. Upstarts means like, just like newbies who don't know anything, and they just exhibit some so-called spiritual motion, but it's actually just their own hormones in their body. In the name of Lord Chaitanya's cult of devotion, many speculators of the above nature have already sprung up. The various means suggested by Ramananda is not an adjustment of the false means of achieving the favor of God adopted by the imitation Chaitanyites. Various means are mentioned in connection with the perfect mellows of love, namely Shanta Prema, Dasha Prema, Sakya Prema, Vatsalya Prema, and Madhurya Prema. In other words, the means to achieve your particular situation, your particular rati or relationship with the Lord, your particular mellow, are prescribed and described by the acharyas, such as Srila Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And the means he describes are sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti, prema bhakti, and then beginning with vaidhi bhakti, which means the rules and regulations. The 5 transcendental rasas of loving service are possible only after one has transcended the stage of material impediments known as anarthas, unwanted things in the heart. Those who have no access, unwanted things in the heart mean not the blood vessels. Those who have no access to the transcendental service of Godhead wrongly think the manufactured processes are equal to the above-mentioned self-realized stages of the love of Godhead. This misconception of the upstarts is but a sign of their misfortune. Don't be an upstart. All right, next page. The analysis of the above-mentioned 5 transcendental rasas is also made in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It is said that the transcendental rasas are experienced in 5 progressive ways, yet at a certain point, one rasa is experienced as the sweetest of all. Usually that's the rasa that you are attracted to. For you, that's the sweetest of all. But objectively, the conjugal rasa is the sweetest of all. That's why it's called madhurya. Sweetness. It's the sweetness ras. Otherwise it would be called madhurya. That's what madhurya means. Sweet. Like in Hindi, you have this word madhu, which means actually a bee. Or another name for a bee is madhumaki. That means a sweet fly. A normal fly is called just mucky. But a madhumaki is a sweet fly or a bee. Anyway, it's interesting. The first time I heard that word in Hindi, I just didn't know what they were talking about. Madhumaki, I said, a sweet fly, but it means a bee. A practical analysis has been made by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in the following example. Ether, air, fire, water, and earth are 5 different elements. Sound is experienced in ether, sound and touch are experienced in air, sound, touch, and form are experienced in fire, sound, touch, form, and taste are experienced in water, sound, touch, form, taste, and smell are experienced in earth. Earth has the qualities of all the elements. The analysis is that each elemental quality is developed through the other by gradual development, but the last one, namely earth, possesses all the qualities. Now Prabhupada explains what that means in the next paragraph. In other words, all the qualities of the rasas are contained, of all the rasas, the spiritual rasas, are contained within the conjugal ras. That's all. That's what it means. In the same way, the transcendental mellowness, and here Prabhupada explains it more directly. In the same way, the transcendental mellowness experienced in the stage mellowness again means the taste. Experience in the stage of Shanta Prema is developed in the stage of Dasha Prema, then Sakya Prema is further developed in Vatsalya Prema, that's parental relationship, and lastly, the complete development is manifest in the stage of Madhurya Prema. For Madhurya Prema includes all the rasas experienced in all the other stages. As I said before, Rasa doesn't mean relationship. It includes all the tastes experienced in all the other devotional stages. Particularly the taste of dasha, servitude, because the taste of dasha, servitude, becomes perfected to its highest degree in the conjugal ras. Why do I say that? Because the gopis, they were willing to go to hell to serve Krishna. I mean, you can't get higher than that. To please Krishna, they were willing to go to hell. According to Srimad Bhagavatam 1082.45, the personality of Godhead is completely obliged by the transcendental loving service rendered in the mood of Madhurya Prem. Mai bhaktir hi bhutanam amritavaya talpate dischaya rasimad sneho vavati namad apanaha. The personality of Godhead said, loving devotional service unto me is itself the eternal life of the living entities. My dear coward girls, the affection that you have in your hearts for me is the only cause of achieving my favor. In the Bhagavad Gita 4:11 it is said, Ye tamam prapatante tam sadaiva bhajam yaham amavartman vartante manusha partha sarvashaha. The personality of Godhead declares that he is experienced in proportion to the degree of one's surrender. The Lord reciprocates in his different manifestations with the particular feelings of his devotees. So next topic is called the quacks. For those of you who don't know what a quack is, that means people who say that they're one thing, they pretend that they're one thing, but they're not actually that thing. They're pretenders. It's a really derogatory term for pretenders. Like if you say, that doctor is a quack, that means he's a pretender. He's not actually a doctor. He's actually completely incompetent and not capable. The quacks of spiritual science. The materialistic philosophers of this world, by way of mental speculation, have decided that God is approachable by any means of spiritual cultivation. According to them, it does not matter whether the method is fruitive action, empiric philosophical speculation, mystic yoga, meditation, penance, or any other method. All of them will ultimately lead to the highest goal. In fact, some of them even say overindulgence in sense gratification will give you Krishna consciousness, because this way you'll get detached. It doesn't work like that, because then the pig would be the most detached entity in this world. The example is that they are generally put forward in support of their theory goes like this. There may be several thoroughfares. If any of them is followed, surely one will reach the desired destination. More explicitly, they say that God is represented in various forms, such as Lord Ramchandra, the impersonal Brahman, Goddess Kali, Durga, Mahadev, Ganesh, and many others. And as such, any one of them can be worshipped with equal value. That's a bunch of hogwash. It's not true. The government is represented in different departments, but you may be in the prison department, but that does not have equal value with someone who's in the Congress, for example, or Parliament. The Bhagavad Gita in the 9th chapter, text 25, states, and of course this verse states, whatever you worship, that's where you go. Yanti deva vrata devan pitrin yanti prachi vrataha bhutani yanti bhuteja yanti mad yajino pimam. The worshippers of the demigods such as Ganesh, Surya, and Indra will ultimately reach the abodes of such gods. They will go to the planets of those demigods respectively according to their worship, while only the devotee of Sri Krishna will reach the abode of Sri Krishna. In other words, whoever and whatever you worship, that's where you're going, buddy. Worship the ghost, you go to the ghost. Bhutani yanti bhuteja. Thus, the mundaners avoid the Bhagavad Gita. They forget that they are under the influence of the conditions of external energy. That means the material energy. As such, they worship the demigods, motivated by a desire for material gain, and develop an illusory attachment for such demigods, and thereby are thrown from the real path of progress, reaching the personality of Godhead, Being attached thus, the worshippers of different demigods are forced to circumambulate, that's an interesting word, the different spheres of the material world and undergo the rigors of repeated birth and death. And of course, Krishna also says if someone desires to worship some particular demigod, Krishna himself in the heart makes that person's faith and determination strong. Because Krishna is reciprocating, again, that verse, Yeta Mam Prabhajante, with someone's desire or desires. He gives them the intelligence to carry out that desire, the determination, the faith, and everything like that. Everything comes from Krishna, even the desire to worship the demigods, if one wants it. And if one wants to worship Krishna, Krishna makes one's faith strong. What? Dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti tesham satadiyuktanam bhajatam pratiporvikam. Those who aspire, who want to reach the personality of God and thereby worship Him by loving service, will certainly reach Him. The real explanation is that one gets the result of the quality of their worship, and all the results are not the same as conceived by the mundane speculators. Those who aspire after the results of their religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and endeavors for salvation cannot expect to reach the same destination as the pure transcendental devotees. The result of religiosity is temporary happiness in the human life. The result of economic development is increased facility for sense gratification. And the result of sense gratification is frustration. You can't get no satisfaction, which leads to the desire for liberation. The result of salvation is merging to the personal Brahman. But the result for the devotees of Sri Krishna is the attainment of the eternal service of the personality of God and eternal bliss. The gulf of difference between these diverse results cannot be understood by the mundaners. So here, next topic is quite interesting. Mahamaya and Yogamaya. Maya, of course, means energy, and Maha means great, Yoga means connection. So the great energy and the connecting energy. Mahamaya, that's in the material world. She's in charge of the material world. The mother or source of this material world and the delegated demigods are but diverse external energies or agencies of the Supreme Personality of God. External means material. Under the direction of the Personality of Godhead, these agencies perform their respective functions in the administration of the universal laws. In other words, they're given their job by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the design of the universe. This is what you got to do. This is the law. You got to follow it. You got to administer it. And they do it because they're devotees. But many of them are not pure devotees. That is the information we have received, we have from the Bhagavad Gita, in which the Personality of Godhead declares that only under His direction does the material energy produce the material world, and the whole administration of the universe is thus controlled ultimately by Him. Maya jakshena prakriti suyate sa characharam. Hey, too. Like this. The internal energy of Godhead is different. That is also explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Internal energy means the spiritual energy, what's called Yogamaya. There's another permanent energy, aparayam itistvanyam prakritim vidimay puram. There's another permanent energy of Godhead that is never destroyed, even after the annihilation of the whole cosmic manifestation. That internal energy is different from Mahamaya, and she is called Yogamaya. So Mahamaya is material energy and charge of everyone here, the charge of the modes of nature, and Yogamaya is the spiritual energy of the Lord in charge of all living entities who are serving Krishna in the spiritual realm. And all the pure devotees, of course, in this realm too. All right. Let's see. The permanent universe is the creation of Yogamaya. Permanent means the spiritual. Because in the material world, bhutva, bhutva, praliyate, it is not permanent. Sometimes it's manifest, sometimes it's not. Those who want unalloyed, loving service to the personality of Godhead must ask for the mercy of Yogamaya. Those who want to satisfy their own senses, or those who desire to become one with the impersonal Brahman because of being baffled by the pursuit of sense gratification, worship Mahamaya, or the predominating demigods, respectively. Easy to understand. The damsels of Braj worship Yogamaya to get the son of the king of Braja as their husband or lover. That means Krishna as their husband or lover. While others within the system of material Varnashram Dharma worship Mahamaya, the superintending deity of the material world, to alleviate distress. There's a gulf of difference between the results of these two varieties of worship, and the attempt to equalize such diametrically opposed activities is like the jaundiced eye seeing everything is yellow. Such is the vision of the diseased person in ignorance. Wow. So tomorrow we'll talk about how the name is absolute. So let's stop sharing. And let's see, hold on a second. Allow you to unmute yourselves. Okay, so if you have a question, you can unmute yourself, or you can type in the chat box, or you can raise your hand and I'll call on you. Does anybody have any questions? So, nobody has a question. Interesting. Krishikesh, you have a question. So what's the question?
I just wanted to understand the forms in the spiritual world. Are they made up of all these different rasas?
The what in the spiritual world?
The different forms. The forms of the gopi, form of a cow.
The forms
Are they made up of these rasas, different rasas?
the forms of the gopis? Are you talking about?
Like we have different rasas, like conjugal rasas, dasya rasa.
Wait,
Uh,
I just have trouble understanding what you're saying. Speak a little more clearly.
yeah, what I'm saying is that the forms in the spiritual world, right? Like we have this gopis
Forms
form
in the
or
spiritual
cows
world.
form.
Forms in the spiritual world are what?
Are they made of different rasas? Rasas like dasya rasa,
Yeah,
madhurya rasa.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, you take your form in this. You take, or whoever has a form in the spiritual world that are indicative of a particular rasa.
Okay, I just wanted to understand that what does a form consist of?
Yeah, the forms are actually consistent with the rasas in the spiritual world. But you
Okay,
really you have your spiritual body. Prabhupada described it in different ways. One way was you have your spiritual body, you've just forgotten it. Another way he described it's like a seed. You got to fructify the seed and let it develop. But in any case, your spiritual identity is already there. It's inherent in you, the soul, and it's a question of waking it up. Or and that's an example that Prabhupada oftentimes gave. That when you chant Hare Krishna, you wake up and you remember who you are, and right now you're in a state of amnesia. And the methodology of getting out of the state of amnesia is to remind a person of their real identity. And that's the whole point about sadhana bhakti. It's just reminding people, you're a servant, you're a servant. Hare Krishna, please let me serve you. Krishna, Radharani, engage me in Krishna's service. And so you keep reminding yourself, and after a while you'll say, wow, you're right. I remember now that I'm a servant. Okay, good question. So who else has a question that they like to ask? You can type if you're shy. Send me a private chat message if you're really shy. Or raise your hand. No? That's interesting.
Hare Krishna Gurudev.
Hare Krishna.
Please accept my obeisances.
Priya Gopi. So, all right, so my blessings. So you have a question?
Yes, I have a question, Gurudev. Now, you were mentioning in this chapter, like people who have material desires and they are asking something to Krishna to satisfy their desires. So they're still in Maya. So does that mean that, like, I, being a grahastha, in a very low position, still have some desires, and we just go and ask Krishna to just help me out with this desire? That means
Yeah,
we are still in Maya.
yeah. Not completely, because at least you're going to Krishna. The Bhagavatam says whether you're free of material desires, full of material desires, or your desires of liberation, which Prabhupada here describes as a material desire, you should approach Krishna. So in
Right.
other words, you basically, it's not an all or nothing thing. What you're describing is something called karma mishra bhakti.
Bhakti. Okay.
It's bhakti, but it's karma mishra. It's mixed with some self-centered desire. It's not completely self-centered, but it's mixed.
Yeah.
But there's no problem with it as long as you're honest about it. Like Dhruva Maharaj was performing karma mishra bhakti.
Mm.
You understand?
Yes. 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 Yes.
He was
Mm.
performing, and he became a pure devotee.
Yes, Gurudev.
Later
Yeah.
on, he got Shuddha Bhakti. So, and then you have the four Kumaras performing what's called Jnana Mishra Bhakti, which means they wanted liberation or knowledge.
Knowledge. Yes.
So, both of those are all right. They're fine. I mean, one has to be honest. Because before you're a pure devotee, or before someone's a pure devotee, they're always performing mixed bhakti by
Okay,
definition.
Guru.
If you're not a pure devotee, it's mixed.
Next. Okay.
If you're a pure devotee, it's anyabi lashita shunyam. It has no mixture, so don't worry about it.
Okay. Thank you, Gurudev.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol. Good question. So, time for one question, or we can end class 2 minutes early. Okay. So going once, and we'll see everybody tomorrow. Tomorrow here is Tuesday, which is Ekadashi, and so we'll have the regular class. Oh, anyway, let me just. I find it hard to understand that asking for liberation from the material world and joining Krishna in the spiritual world is a material desire. And on the other hand, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, come to my boat. Now, if you want to join Krishna in the spiritual world, that's your desire. That's completely spiritual. But if you want to join Krishna in the spiritual world because you want to get out of here, it's mixture. It's a mixture. If you're thinking, you can have a purely spiritual desire. I just want to be with Krishna and play with Krishna in the spiritual world. Completely spiritual. But if it's mixed with anything else, like, I got to get out of this place, it's miserable, birth, death, disease, and old age, then it's mixture. So, in other words, if part of your desire is liberation, I'm fed up with this material world, then that's mixture. But if you're thinking, wherever Krishna wants to send me, I'll accept, or if you're just thinking, I really hanker to be with Krishna, it's a positive thing. In other words, if it's positive, it's pure. If it has some positive aspect, some negative aspect, I don't like this material world, I want to get out of the material world, then there's some mixture at that particular juncture. That's a good question, and the answer was very important to understand. So tomorrow we'll be having this class, same class, and Wednesday we'll also be having this class, which is Thursday where some of you are. And on Thursday here in North Carolina, it's Lord Nityananda's appearance day, so we're going to class to Lord Nityananda. Friday we'll also have this class. And Saturday, I'm not sure because I'm going to be traveling this coming Saturday, which is Sunday for some of you. I'm going to be traveling to India, so we may have to stop the classes while I'm in India for about 3 weeks. So we'll see what Krishna wants. We will have to see. Okay, thank you very much. On that happy, happy, happy note, we'll see everybody tomorrow. All glorious to His divine grace, Srila Prabhupada.